Welcome to our deep dive today, and get this, we're exploring photography, but not in the way you might think.
Always a twist.
Right. So, our source today is a blog post, but hold on, it's from a blog called kianandmeng.org, written by a software engineer named Ang.
Okay, now that's an interesting combo. Software and photography, not your typical pairing.
Exactly, and that's what makes this so fascinating. Ang's blog is a mix of his work life and hobbies, and it's not just photography, he's also into gardening and fish keeping.
Wow. Talk about a diverse range of interests. You wouldn't think those have anything in common.
Right. But this post we're diving into, it's called Notes on Photography, Part 177, Large Body Mannequins, published December 23rd, 2024. And get this, the whole thing was inspired by a shopping trip for gardening supplies.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Gardening supplies leading to a photography lesson. Tell me more.
So he's shopping for gardening tools, and he comes across these plus-size mannequins on display.
All right, so we've got mannequins, we've got photography, we've got gardening. I'm starting to see a pattern here, but why were these mannequins so special?
That's a good question. I mean, was it just their size? I'm looking at the picture he included in his post, and
Well, actually, it seems like it was more than just the size. He specifically mentions the third mannequin from the left, talking about its pose, this prominent stomach.
huh, interesting. I guess that's the engineer in him, noticing the specific details. It's like he sees things differently.
And maybe that's what makes him a good photographer, too, seeing the world from a unique angle. Speaking of seeing things differently, that's where the reflections come in.
Oh, right. He uses this whole mannequin encounter to teach us about dealing with those pesky reflections that always seem to pop up in photos.
It's brilliant, turning an everyday experience into a learning opportunity.
Totally. He talks about how glass windows, mirrors, even glossy displays can cause those unwanted reflections that ruin a perfectly good shot. Like, haven't we all been there?
Oh yeah, countless times. You think you've got the perfect shot, and then bam, there's this huge glare right in the middle of it.
Exactly. So, how does he suggest we tackle this problem? He has to have some tricks up his sleeve.
He does, and they're actually pretty simple. One of them is adjusting your shooting distance, moving closer to or further away from your subject.
Wait, hold on. How does that help with reflections? I'm genuinely curious.
Well, think about it. If you change your distance, you're changing the angle that the light is hitting the reflective surface. That can be enough to make a big difference.
Never thought about it like that. So, moving closer can actually change how those reflections appear.
Exactly. And speaking of changing things, another tip he has is using a polarizing filter.
Now, I've heard of those, but they always seemed kind of intimidating, like something only professionals use. How do they work exactly?
They sound complicated, but the idea is pretty simple. It has to do with how light vibrates, right? When light reflects off certain surfaces like water or glass, those light waves start vibrating in mostly one direction.
Okay, I think I'm following so far.
A polarizing filter, it's like a gatekeeper for your lens. It blocks out those overly directional light waves so they don't reach your sensor.
So it's like filtering out the specific light that's causing the glare?
Exactly. And the cool thing is you can actually see the reflections changing as you rotate the filter on your lens. It's pretty neat.
Okay, that makes sense. What about lens hoods? Are those just for blocking sunlight, or do they help with reflections too?
They're mainly for blocking sunlight, which can cause lens flare, but they can help indirectly with reflections as well.
How so?
Well, those stray light rays that cause flare can sometimes worsen reflections. By blocking them, the lens hood is kind of giving your lens an extra layer of protection.
It's like they're creating a barrier against unwanted light.
Exactly. And then the last thing he talks about is shooting angles, basically trying out different positions and seeing how they affect those reflections.
Oh, right. That seems so basic, but I always forget about it. I get stuck in one spot and just shoot from there.
I do that too. But sometimes, a tiny change in your position can make all the difference. You might find that a reflection disappears from one angle or becomes a cool part of the composition from another.
It's like finding that sweet spot where everything falls into place.
And that's what makes photography so exciting. It's not just pointing and clicking, it's about experimenting and finding those creative solutions.
Speaking of creative solutions, we were talking about those mannequins earlier and how Aang was drawn to them. He mentions that he's actually really into anime figures.
Anime figures, really?
Yeah, he even talks about customizing them, maybe sculpting his own. It made me wonder if that interest in figures might be influencing his approach to photography.
I could see that. Maybe his appreciation for the intricate details and textures of figures has made him more aware of those things in his photography.
Like the way he notices the specific pose of that one mannequin. Maybe that comes from his experience with figures.
Right. And his fascination with reflections, maybe it's connected to how light plays off the surfaces of those figures.
That's a really cool connection. It shows how our passions can kind of bleed into each other and influence our creative process.
And sometimes those unexpected connections can lead to the most interesting results.
Totally agree. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's bring it back to the deep dive. We're trying to unpack this blog post and see what it means for our listeners, even if they aren't software engineers or anime enthusiasts.
Good point. So, what's the takeaway here for everyone? What can we all learn from Aang's experience, regardless of our backgrounds?
Well, it seems to me that it's all about observation, curiosity, and that willingness to experiment.
I like that. Aang's post shows us that inspiration can come from the most unexpected places and that learning can happen anywhere.
Exactly. It's about being present in our everyday lives, paying attention to the small details, asking questions, and trying new things without fear of failure.
Embracing that mindset of continuous learning and finding connections between seemingly unrelated fields.
And those are things we can all do, no matter what our profession or hobbies are. So what if we put ourselves in our listeners' shoes? They're out there, camera in hand, ready to capture some amazing shots. They've found the perfect scene, but it's full of reflections, just like Aang's mannequin encounter. What's the first step they should take, based on what we've learned from Aang?
Great question. That's what we'll dive into next time. So last time we left off with our listeners out there ready to take some amazing photos. They've found the pursing scene, but it's full of reflections. What's the first thing they should do?
Yeah, it's like, we've all been there, right? You're so excited about the shot, but then you see those reflections, and it's like, ugh, how do I deal with this?
Well, before you even think about your camera settings, take a moment to just observe the scene.
Observe, like, what am I looking for?
Think about what's causing those reflections. Are there windows, mirrors, shiny objects?
Oh, right, like maybe a car parked nearby or a puddle on the ground.
Exactly. Or even those calm bodies of water we talked about. They can create those beautiful reflections, but they can also be tricky.
So once I've identified the sources of the reflections, what's next? Do I just start snapping away and hope for the best?
Not quite. Remember what Aang said about shooting distance. Sometimes just taking a step forward or back can dramatically change those reflections.
Wait, seriously, just moving a little bit can make that big of a difference.
It can. When you change your position relative to the reflective surface, you're changing the angle of the light that's hitting it. You might find that sweet spot where the reflections become less noticeable or even disappear.
Huh. I never thought about it like that. I'm gonna have to try that next time I'm out shooting. But what if moving around doesn't solve the problem?
Then we can try something else. Remember those polarizing filters we talked about? Those could be really helpful in situations like this.
Okay, so those polarizing filters, can you give us a quick refresher on how those work? I know we touched on it earlier, but I think a lot of listeners, myself included, could use a little more explanation. Like, how do they actually reduce reflections?
Sure. So imagine you're trying to photograph a building, but the windows are reflecting the sky and everything around it. It's creating a lot of glare, and you can't really see the details of the building.
Oh yeah, I've definitely been there. Super frustrating.
Well, a polarizing filter can help with that. It works because of the way light vibrates.
Light vibrates. Okay, now you're gonna have to break that down for me.
I know it sounds complicated, but stay with me. When light bounces off a smooth, non-metallic surface like glass or water, those light waves start vibrating in mainly one direction. We call that polarized light.
Oh, okay, so polarized light is basically light that's vibrating in one direction.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that polarized light is what causes a lot of that glare and those reflections. A polarizing filter acts like a barrier that blocks out those specific light waves.
So it's like it's filtering out the glare, allowing only the non-polarized light through.
You got it. The cool thing is you can rotate the filter on your lens, and you'll actually see those reflections change in real time. You can fine-tune it to reduce the glare as much as possible.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Okay, what about lens hoods? Do they help with reflections at all?
Lens hoods are primarily for blocking stray light, which can cause lens flare and those weird spots in your photos.
Right, right. I always thought they were just for protecting the lens from bumps and scratches.
That too, but the main purpose is to block unwanted light.
Okay, so how does that relate to reflections?
Sometimes those stray light rays can actually worsen reflections. The lens hood acts like a shield, preventing that stray light from hitting the lens at extreme angles.
Ah, I see. So it's like by reducing the overall amount of light hitting the lens hood is indirectly helping to minimize those reflections.
Exactly. And then the last thing we talked about was experimenting with shooting angles. This is one of the simplest but most effective techniques.
Right, like just physically moving around to find a better position. I'm definitely guilty of forgetting to do that.
It's so easy to get stuck in one spot, but sometimes all it takes is a small shift to the left or right, crouching down, or finding a higher vantage point, and suddenly those reflections are gone, or they've become a cool part of the composition.
I guess it's all about looking at the scene from different perspectives, seeing how those reflections change as you move around.
Exactly. Sometimes you might even find that a reflection you were trying to get rid of actually adds something interesting to the photo when you look at it from a different angle.
It's like turning a problem into an opportunity for creativity. It reminds me of how Aang was drawn to those mannequins. We were talking about how his interest in anime figures might be influencing his photography.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting thought. Do you think that kind of cross-pollination between our passions happens more often than we realize?
I think so. Our hobbies, our interests, even our past experiences all come together to shape how we see the world. And that definitely comes through in our creative work, whether it's photography, music, writing, anything.
Absolutely. Like a musician might find inspiration for a new song from a painting, or a painter might be influenced by the way a dancer moves. It's all connected.
I love that. So, bringing it back to our deep dive, what's the key takeaway here for our listeners? What do we want them to remember about dealing with reflections and finding creative solutions?
I think the most important thing is to remember that photography is a journey, not a destination.
What do you mean by that?
It means it's okay to make mistakes, to experiment, to try new things, and not be afraid to fail. It means that every photo you take, every challenge you overcome, every mistake you learn from is all part of the process of becoming a better photographer.
So, it's not about being perfect, it's about embracing the journey and learning along the way.
Exactly. And, speaking of learning, there's one more important aspect of photography that we haven't really touched on yet.
Community. Community. You mean like groups of photographers sharing tips and ideas with each other?
Right. Like, think about Aang. He could have kept all those insights about reflections to himself, but he chose to share them on his blog. And because of that, we're all able to benefit from his experience.
That's true. It makes you realize that photography isn't just a solitary pursuit. It's about connecting with other people who share that same passion.
And, it's not just about getting feedback or technical advice from other photographers. It's also about finding inspiration, seeing what other people are creating, and realizing that there's so many different ways to approach this art form.
I know I'm constantly inspired by the photos I see online in blogs and magazines. It pushes me to try new things and see the world in a different way.
Speaking of blogs, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the role of personal blogs in today's world? With all the social media platforms out there, do you think blogs still have a place?
That's a good question. I think they offer something different than social media. Like with a blog, you have more space to really delve into a topic, to share your thoughts and ideas in a more in-depth way.
And it feels more personal. It's like you're getting a glimpse into someone's mind, their creative process. Aang's blog is a great example of that. He's not just posting pretty pictures, he's sharing his knowledge and his enthusiasm in a way that really draws you in.
Yeah, it feels like you're having a conversation with him, not just scrolling through an endless feed of images.
Exactly. And, it's kind of refreshing, in a way, to step back from the constant noise of social media and just focus on one person's perspective, like a throwback to a simpler time on the internet.
I like that. A simpler time. So, thinking about our listeners, how can we encourage them to find that sense of community and connection in their own photography journeys, especially if they're just starting out and maybe feeling a little intimidated?
Well, I think it starts with just being open to sharing your work and your experiences with other people, whether that's joining a photography club, participating in an online forum, or even just striking up a conversation with someone at a local camera shop.
Sometimes that can be the hardest part, putting yourself out there, especially when you're still learning and experimenting. But I think it's so important to connect with other photographers, to learn from each other, and to support each other's creative growth.
It's like building a network, a support system, and you never know where those connections might lead. Think about it. Aang, a software engineer, inspired us to have this whole conversation about photography.
It's amazing how those unexpected connections can happen, right? It just goes to show that you never know where inspiration will come from or what path it will take you down.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Aang's world of reflections, mannequins, and anime figures, I hope you've been inspired to not only try out those tips for dealing with reflections, but to also embrace that spirit of community, that willingness to learn from others and share your own passion with the world.
And remember, photography is for everyone. You don't need fancy equipment or years of experience to create beautiful and meaningful images. It's all about observation, curiosity, and that willingness to experiment and have fun.
So grab your camera, find your community, and get out there and explore the world through your own unique lens.
Happy shooting, everyone!